London's tallest secular building when it went up in the late 1920s. It's 14 floors in total. Until that time, most buildings in London were about 5 or 6 or 7. As you can see, the old Edwardian building, the St Ermin's Hotel on the corner there on the right-hand side. Very, very American in design and influence. It's got a full-height podium, which is the first 2 stories, and then a cruciform plan with the floors rising upwards and setting back at the upper stories to allow natural light to reach the neighbours. They're very neighbourly. Built of steel frame, just like the skyscrapers in New York and Chicago, clad with Portland stone, which is London's primary building material. Triple multi-pane windows all the way up. Garden terraces will go right up to the 10th floor. You can just see a shrub up there. They were provided right from the outset for the welfare and recreation of the staff, and they're still used exactly the same way today. Canteen is still on the ground floor, as it always has been. It was built by a private electric railways group. As you probably know, London Transport was created as a state combine in 1933. This was built 5 years before by the electric railways group that ran all the lines except for the Metropolitan line, so District, Circle, Bakerloo, Piccadilly, etc. here. But then 4 years after completion, when it became a state authority, it became the portion of the London Passenger Transport Board, and it's been the head office for London Underground, the trams until they were abandoned in 1952, trolley buses until they were withdrawn in 1962, London buses, and also the kind of retail commercial arm. London Underground largely moved out about 3 or 4 years ago, and is currently occupied mainly by our estates department, who run the retail and the business side and the redevelopment of vacant sites such as station yards and car parks.
What is the retail and the business side?
Oh, it's enormous. Well, all the shops on every station. Yes, it's the tenancies, the letting, etc.
Where was that being ministered from when they've moved out?
They're moving to Palestra in Southwark and Endeavour Square, which is Westfield Shopping Centre. And we also own a lot of blocks of flats, offices, etc. over our network, over station developments. So Charles Holden, already a very well-known architect by the 20s. Some of you from the West Country might know his Bristol Central Reference Library and Royal Infirmary in Bristol. There's a number of hospitals and sanatoriums. And then he went on to design the really classic Art Deco stations of the 1930s and the Piccadilly line extensions to Harloth Grove, Cockfosters, Hounslow. Just before he did this building, we commissioned him to design the stations on the Morden extension of the Northern Line. So any of you that know the stations from Clapham, Tooting and Balham, Collier's Wood, he did all of those as well. So the original underground roundels have been restored in the 1920s fashion, with the dashed lines and the capital U and larger capital D. The building was very democratically opened by the housekeeper, who's probably called a caretaker today. There's a foundation stone just there. Very unusual, because in those days, and indeed today, most major buildings are unveiled by royalty or wives of the chairman of the board, etc. The sculptures were commissioned from the most famous sculptors of the day, Eric Gill, Jacob Epstein, Henry Moore, etc. Very, very controversial at the time. There were huge protests outside in the street and letters to the newspapers for 2 reasons. One is the sculptures chose faces of Latin American, Chinese and African people, which upset a lot of people in London in those times who were more used to classical Italian and Greek features. So all kinds of words we'd never use today, like primitive, were used. And the board there's a huge petition to get them to have them removed. Also on the first floor, there's a parent and child. The child was given an extremely large member, which again offended public decency, and it went to the board, an extraordinary meeting, and a very British compromise of reducing the offending article by 50% was nodded through, and the public seemed to go away happy after that, and there were no more protests. But the board did stand their ground and kept all the sculptures, which they did recognise were really outstanding for their time. So all the 4 wings, just like a country house, they're named North Wing, East Wing, South Wing, etc., radiate out from the central core, which is where the service rooms, the lavatories, sluice rooms, cleaners' cupboards are, etc. And then, as I said, the setbacks going up to the tower, which is the 14th floor, which is for the plant and the water tanks, etc. The context has changed somewhat. This side, very little. You've still got the Falklands High Commission there with the flag, the Berlin Hotel, all from about 1900. And then slightly earlier buildings from the 1910s here, and then some post-war redevelopments after bombing, late 50s building here, and the Home Office, now the Ministry of Justice, which locals call Darth Vader, which was built in the mid-1970s. Any other questions at this time, or shall we go up? This Broadway house. Yeah, there are various tunnels and things there. They then moved to Millbank. Right, let's go back inside.